Hello and welcome back to another edition of Conquering My Collection Blu-ray Roulette. And remember, the shuffle is sacred. And you know the drill by now, and if you don't and you're new to the series, this is a list of every film I own on Blu-ray that I haven't seen yet. And one thing I could add to that, and I feel like I'm going to be adding stipulations and rules in every single video, but when I started this master list, this is basically every film I own on Blu-ray that I haven't seen as of the 31st of December 2020. So I've probably got like another 20 films that could go onto this list from 2021 that I've bought, but I'm kind of, for my own kind of project of trying to get through all these films at some point, I'm keeping it there and kind of ending it at the end of 2020. So there could be even more in this list, but I think 1049 is a pretty hefty list indeed. Now, if you didn't catch the last episode, I am now going to be keeping all the films in the list when I do the shuffle, and if I get a short film, I will then turn off the short films on the filters, shuffle again, guaranteed to get a feature film, and I'll do two in the same video and make some sort of weird Frankenstein double bill, beginning with a short and moving on to a feature. I'm really excited. I always get excited for this, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing what the hell I could possibly come up with. Well, it's not even what I come up with, what Letterboxd comes up with, what the pure chance of the universe can come up with. And I hover over the shuffle tab right there. And it's one thing that I found funny in some of the comments. Two people I think said in one of the recent videos, they must have noticed, maybe I pointed it out, I don't know, that Elf is in my list. And they were saying, wow, it's possible that you could end up watching Elf in June. And that is entirely correct. Anyway, let's do it. Let's hit shot. I almost feel nervous. What the fuck is it gonna be? The green... Oh, is this... Oh, the green grass of home? Oh, man! Look at that! An 87-minute film. Hallelujah. Brilliant. We don't have to do another shuffle. We have a feature film, and it's in the Massive Cinema collection, which is fantastic. I love the idea of getting to tick off another movie from the Eureka Masters of Cinema collection. I can see on the bottom there that some of, or at least two of the people I follow have given it a rating. I'm not going to look at that. I learned how to say this director's name before, and I've forgotten it already. Hao Shou-shen? No, that's probably not it. But it is a Taiwanese director, I believe. Yes, Taiwan's new wave cinema movement. So he's had a very prolific career and has quite a few films in the MOC collection. Man, this is also, I'm so happy with that. This is like a really, man, I guess, it's just, the range. I can't wait to see, like, yeah, again, I've said before, I can't wait to see like where the thread continues. So we start with documentary from the 90s about a German, filmmaker who made Nazi propaganda films, and then we go over to a kaiju movie from the 1960s made in Japan, and then we have a kind of silent 1930s kind of surreal Christian movie, and now we have a Taiwanese film from the 80s. So this is cool, and I think it's been a different decade for every film so far. So 90s, 60s, 30s, 80s. Very interesting. So let's do it. The green grass of home. Now, this is part of a 3-film set. I started watching the first one and I kind of thought I'll finish that tomorrow, and I never got around to it. I don't think that's this one, but either way, I've really wanted to watch these films, and it's just there's only so much time, and there's never enough motivation, I feel. But this series has really given me a lot of motivation, which is something I've been really enjoying. So obviously, well, not obviously it's you, because you don't know what time it is when I'm recording this. but I won't be watching this straight away. But you know, and that's kind of I should mention. Should I mention it? I don't need to mention it. I guess I don't need to pull back the curtain that much. But for the most part, I'm not doing these straight away. I'm not like filming the shuffle and then watching it straight away and then coming back and filming the reaction. It's usually like I'll do the shuffle, get my excitement out of the way, see what the film is, and then I'll look forward to watching it the next day or after work or something like that. So I'm kind of taking my time with it and not rushing through it or anything. But I'm really excited about this one. A substitute teacher from Taipei arrives in a country village to teach a class of mischievous. I think I have seen the first 20 odd minutes of this film, but I will 100% watch it all over again from the beginning if that is the case. Well, either way, because it was at least 2 years ago. I think I started watching one of the films from this three film set 2 years ago for Asian Cinema Season 2, and I kind of stopped watching. It didn't grip me enough. It kind of not slice of life even, but it was a fairly routine. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like there wasn't a big hook that was like, ooh, I got to see what happens next, and I'm fine with that. But anyway, enough rambling. I'm gonna go watch this film. Well, we'll go find it first, and then I'll check it out and come back with my thoughts at the well, not even at the end of the video. The main bulk of the video is going to be my fucking review, isn't it? So I'll see with the real beginning of the video when I actually get into talking about this, because I'm sure I will have many thoughts. Okay, so this is like a little bit of my Masters of Cinema collection that I just had for background for video. I think, did I already mention this? I don't know if I already mentioned this. Maybe I have in some other video. They're in no order whatsoever, nearly knocked my camera over. But I do have most of the slip-covered ones up here, and I know that, yeah, there we go. This one has a slipcover, so early Hao Shoshan, I think that's how you say it. 3 films from 1980 and 1983, and the film we're watching is the second film in the set, The Green Green Grass of Home. So yeah. Oh, I think Cute Girl is the one I started watching, I think. So I might not have seen anything from this. Anyway, let's just get on with it and check this film out. Alrighty, I am done with The Green Green Grass of Home, 1982, directed by Ho Xiaoshen. So I got the Xiaoshen bit correct, but I neglected the Ho part, which I thought was Hao. I think I said Hao Xiaoshen at the beginning, but it is Ho Xiaoshen. Kind of a nice, pleasing name to say, and it's always nice to get the correct pronunciation, which I took from Tony Raines, so I'm going to assume that's right on the money. So I've watched this film, and I have some thoughts. Starring Kenny B and Mei Feng Chen. I'm not going to go any further with the names, but Kenny B he's a singer, I believe, or was at some point, an actor who plays is kind of the lead character of this film. But first of all, let's log it. Actually, well, let me just find when was the day I finished watching it. 16th, I think. So I definitely liked it. But I didn't think it was great. I read a review of it on Blu-ray.com many moons ago, and it was singing its praises as this brilliant, great film, which had so much to offer. And for me, I think this is a film that has so much to offer, but doesn't kind of deliver on that potential. So this is one of his early films, Ho Xiaoshen, his third film, I believe. And the films in this set, the early Ho Xiaoshen, are meant to be kind of like, kind of romantic comedy, kind of light, bubbly film. Let's just read the back of it. One of world cinema's most dynamic and highly regarded auteurs, Ho Xiaoshen has influenced entire generations of filmmakers and was once dubbed one of the 3 directors most crucial to the future of cinema. Well, it doesn't say much about these 3 films, but they're the 3 films. I tried watching the video essay by Adrian Martin on this film, but I couldn't get through it. I don't know. It was okay, but I found myself just thinking I'm not getting a lot out of this. All due respect to the guy, but it was a little dry and just kind of describing the film. There wasn't enough background information that I usually like And there are, there's ways of going about it. Look at the featurette that I watched on Gamera versus Gauss. 9-minute featurette, a guy, kind of a critic, hosting it. He gave a bit of a personal touch, lots of background information on the film. It was really, really, really good. That was a bit more dry on the green grass of home. So the film is about this teacher who comes into this kind of sleepy village in Taiwan, and it's this just gorgeous locations, kind of mountains surrounding this. It kind of feels like a valley area, but all these like beautiful fields and kind of a rural area. Everyone knows everyone. There's beautiful slice of life moments throughout the film, little scenes and moments that just shine as their own little moments. They don't necessarily have much to add to the overall narrative, but they're just wonderful to watch. And I really enjoyed, just getting snapshots of, and that's one thing I love about world cinema to me, is just seeing, and I've said this many times before, but it's worth repeating, seeing different places, different times, different people, different ways of living. And while this is a fictional film, it is capturing in some way a different way of living. And I actually was listening to a kind of a talk on Ho Xiaoshen's career by Tony Raines on YouTube, and he brilliantly does this. When he's talking about things, he'll give you so much context. And for me, Taiwan, I couldn't tell you anything about it other than it's kind of linked to China. So at the beginning of his talk on Ho, he goes, okay, here's the history of Taiwan in 5 minutes, which was fascinating. But so I was intrigued to learn about that. I won't go into that into any detail actually, because I need to get banging on about the film itself. But teacher comes in, played by Kenny B, and his sister teaches at the school in this small village, but she has to leave. So her brother comes in to take over for her for a year, I believe. And it follows him as he settles into the village, and it also follows these three young boys, mainly the two of them. But there's kind of three main boys in the school. Then a girl character comes in who's a cousin to the other boy. And so you get this kind of split that isn't very even of the teacher's story and then the young boy's story, and those two frequently intersect. One of the boys is a very troubled young kid whose mother may or may not be dead. I thought that was a bit of and again, I'm going to assume that you're either not too precious about spoilers in a film like this, or you've already seen it. Probably the former, I'm hoping. I won't spoil anything massive, but then nothing really massive in this film happens, if that makes sense. I don't feel like it's a film you can spoil. But there was a scene where the young boy with his sister, beautiful scene, shot at sunset, he writes a message to his mother and kind of puts it into a little paper boat and sends it off into the stream at sunset. And the sister says, do you think, Mum will get our letters? And he says, I hope so. And I thought that meant she was dead. But no, later on in the film, he goes off to try and find her in the city. And we get kind of an explanation later on of what happened with the mother. It's kind of vague, but you can kind of paint in the rest for yourself. But this young boy whose mother was, absent, I thought he was the most effective part of the film, because his face is so sweet and innocent, and you really feel for him when, his dad's hitting him and he's not even reacting. It's heartbreaking. And they even paint the father in a somewhat sympathetic light, even though he does bad things. I liked that. There was layers there and there was depth there. But with the teacher character and his romance with another school teacher, I felt there was no depth. I felt there was no development of it. It just seemed to kind of happen. I mean, there's a scene when he turns up at school, she kind of looks over at him, that there's a look, and then he kind of looks at her during one of her lessons, and then suddenly they're out on a day out together, riding bikes. There's no real, maybe it's kind of nice that we don't get the meet cute between these two characters, and it just kind of naturally flows into a relationship, or into a budding relationship, potential relationship. And they focus quite a bit on that in kind of the second half of the film. But I felt like it just kind of all happened. There was like a friend character who I think worked at the school, and he just seemed to appear out of nowhere with no real setup, and suddenly he's like, they're all pals and friendly, and I felt like, what did I miss? It felt like it was a film that had missing scenes, and I actually think it's an hour and a half long. I like a film that's an hour and a half, but I think that the good parts of this film, like the cinematography, the framing of certain shots, and in that sense, the kind of building of the village as a character in the film, I thought was really well done. I thought some of the acting seemed very convincing and kind of naturalistic. I think if you gave this film another half an hour or even another 20 minutes with a lot more setup for the characters, more development, smoother balance between all the characters. I think that you could have a really great film here. So I loved the way that it looked. I enjoyed some of the performances. As I've said before many times on the channel, I find it difficult to 100% say when I'm watching a foreign performance, that's a great performance. Sometimes you can just tell with the body language, with the eyes, which are kind of huge when it comes to acting, you can just tell that's a great performance. Other times, and it's especially when a character is shouting, I think, and it's a language you can't understand. And I think shouting is a really hard thing to pull off in acting and make it sound convincing. And with the kids, they're kind of screaming and shouting, and I honestly had no idea whether it was convincing acting from the kids or not. I don't know. It could have been brilliant direction from Ho in terms of getting these kids to say things naturally, and maybe that's why other people find it to be such a great film. But I couldn't get a grasp on that. And there was one scene when the tubby boy gets called in by his father for doing something wrong, and he's giving his kid a bollocking, and the kid's just there laughing. He's just laughing at it, and it feels like he wasn't supposed to laugh because it didn't feel like a comedic scene, and it just took me so far out of the film that I almost just went and did something else. Like it was just really weird. It felt like an outtake that shouldn't have been there, you know. But maybe it was the intent of the scene. I don't know, but it didn't read to me, unfortunately. There's a whole plot about the river, this creek, and kind of the poisoning of fish, and I kind of enjoyed that actually, and how the teacher was really passionate about it and wanted to make change, but it was it almost felt like a little too late in a sense. There was also a very dramatic scene involving an electrocution, which I felt was really kind of jaw dropping and horrifying, and then it just kind of never gets mentioned again, and it didn't seem to have any ramifications. Well, maybe it was mentioned one straight afterwards, but I felt like it was such a big moment potentially. I don't know. It almost seemed too flippant. Anyway, I really enjoyed the film. A very confusing bit at the very end, and it's a very sentimental film towards the end. And honestly, I didn't mind that. I like it when a film is just nice, and it gives us a nice warm feeling at the end. But the teacher gets on a train at the end to leave the village, and I'm like, oh, I guess so. He's done his year, and now he's going to leave, and he's with the young teacher, and they formed a relationship. He gets onto the train, all the kids come to say goodbye, and the girl is on the platform, and she's like, I'll see you in a month, or I'll catch up with you in the city, or something like that. And he said, yeah, okay then. And then she just steps onto the train herself, and then the train takes off. And it just kind of, again, took me out of it because I was like, didn't she just say, I'll see you later? And then stepped onto the train. And then they wave and they go off into the distance. I just felt really weird. Like, why add that line? You know, I felt like it didn't need an explanation, you know? And even then, the explanation didn't make much sense. I don't know, maybe I just misread that completely. And as the kids are running after the train at the end, which you kind of see in the poster here, spoilers, that's kind of, you know, one of the more memorable shots from the beginning of the film. It's the final shot of the film, and as the kids are running and the music is playing, in my head I was like, it's got to be a freeze frame ending, hasn't it, surely? And boom, freeze frame ending. And I almost want to give it an extra point for that because I thought that was quite a nice way to end it, but I just think that there was a lot of potential there, and it didn't get delivered for me, unfortunately. But I still thought it was a really, really good film. I enjoyed it quite a lot. I'm going to give it a 3.5, I think. But I'm tempted to go a 4 because I don't know. There were certain scenes where things were out of focus, like even just like close-ups. Well, there was one close-up or medium shot which was out of focus on a character's face, like the drawer behind him was in focus. And I thought, well, you know, you gotta let it slide. And in the video essay by Adrian Martin, he said that he was talking about how the cinematography has taken a step forward in Ho's career, and everything is so sharply and crisply in focus. And I'm just like, well, it isn't actually, is it? It's not actually all in focus. I don't know whether he literally meant that or whether he meant the story was in focus, but you know, that was just a funny thing that I noted from the film. I really liked Kenny B though. He almost seemed like a Chinese Harry Potter. I don't know. He had the same kind of hair and the glasses. He's like a bookish kind of looking guy, and he just had an inherently likable quality to him, like Harry Potter. It wasn't just the looks. It reminded me of Harry Potter in terms of the fact that not all that interesting of a person really, but just played earnestly, and he just seemed like someone you'd like to have as your teacher. You know, although he did have a particularly brutal punishment. Not really, but, you know, I think about this, you know, if I applied it to my own life, the three boys get into a scuffle, into this scrap, and he gets them all to hold hands and stand there for an hour holding each other's hands. And I just think, if I had to hold, you know, the hand of my bully for an hour, I mean, that is just insane. But they weren't bullying each other. They were kind of friends, but they got into an argument, had a scrap, and they made up in the end. It was all fine. I will leave it there. That's The Green Grass of Home. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. But I forgot to do, and I'll probably forget to do this here and there. You know, it just is what it is. The list. The Blu-ray Roulette ranking list. So how many are we on now? 5, I think? So the third one was, I think it was Verdict Guilty? Yeah. Or maybe this is the fourth one. I think this is the fourth one, actually. Yeah, Verdict Not Guilty. We'll definitely put that at the bottom. And The Green Grass of Home. Oh, now this is interesting. Do I put it above Gamera versus Gauss or not? I think I would, just based on the strength of, again, the story, ironically, even though I think the story could have used a lot more work. There was actually times it reminded me of a Studio Ghibli film. Just in terms of the fact that not much happens, there's not a whole lot of conflict. Even the final scene reminded me a little bit of Only Yesterday, just without, you know, the great story before it that preceded that scene. But yeah, so I that's where I put those four wildly different movies, and there we go. That's the ranked list as it stands, and I can't wait to do the next one. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.
He's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause